With my other climbing shoe reviews, I've spent some decent time in all of those shoes, but none of those shoes really compare to the time that I spent in these shoes. And these shoes are the Katana laces from La Sportiva. Now, I've got 3 models here, and they're all slightly different. And we'll kind of jump into that. But what you need to know about the Katana right off the bat is the Katana is a really all-rounder shoe from La Sportiva. And when I say all-rounder, I don't mean like all-rounder beginner. I mean like all-rounder performance. So with that right out of the bag, yes, this is more of a performance shoe. A lot of their high-end athletes use the Katana, but they're just a shoe that handles everything really well. You can boulder hard in them, you can trad climb it hard in them, and you can sport climb hard in them. Are they going to be the best shoe for certain things? Obviously Sportiva does make some more specialized shoes for certain things. And they actually have some more like advanced technology, like no edge technology in some of their climbing shoes that are really good for certain terrain. But the Katana is kind of like the workhorse, in ways it's like the TC Pro in terms of the workhorseness. That they just kind of handle everything that's thrown at them. The TC Pro is like the best shoe for big walls, whereas the Katana they really handle everything. And I've been on a variety of different rock types, and they performed great in every single one. And I've even climbed in the gym in these, and they just are a shoe that you really can just put on, kind of forget about, and no, it's not a fuss to deal with the slight performance advantages and the disadvantages. Like, it's just an overall great performer. So that is the Katana lace. But what happened in 2022 is that the Katana lace actually got updated. So these 2 models are the updated model, and this is the older model. I've climbed a little bit in this older model, and I do got to say that the updated models, they're great. The updates that they did to them were very, very much, maybe not so much like totally needed. Like, the old Katanas still climbed just as good, but the updates that they did make to the shoes were just more of like quality of life sort of thing. So with that being said, let's kind of get into the differences between the older version into the newer version. So thankfully with La Sportiva, they didn't change a whole lot with the Katana. That's kind of a big fear with a lot of people have when it comes to climbing shoes and then updating them. I mean, you don't want to hear that your favorite shoe is getting updated and they completely change how the shoe performs. Like, that no one wants to hear that, right? Well, thankfully, La Sportiva didn't do that. They just changed some minor things to the Katanas, and realistically, it was more of an overall like aesthetic update. You can kind of see just the difference here. Like, this is kind of La Sportiva's older styling with the mountain ridges and all that, whereas the new Katanas is more in line with kind of La Sportiva's new sort of styling towards rock climbing shoes, and just more of their modern kind of styling. So overall, it was more of an aesthetic update. The big 2 things that changed were the heel and then the front toe seam. And the toe seam you can't see right now, it's inside the shoe. But basically what they changed is that the toe seam on the older Katana, where the 2 pieces or the upper are stitched into the lower, it's stitched right where your toes go. And that's not necessarily a problem right off the bat. But where it comes into a problem is when you start to use them a lot and then you go to resole them, that stitch point can become a weak spot and it can fail. And once that kind of fails, it's really hard to kind of bring those shoes back to life. You can still resole them, but sometimes resolers just won't even touch them because they have a hole there. So it's kind of an annoyance, but it's more of like a later down the road thing. But luckily the new Katanas, they kind of mitigated that where they moved the seam a little bit higher. So now your toes shouldn't hopefully break through that seam anytime soon. So that's really great. Not only does, it have that boost so your feet don't, or your toes don't rip through, but, it just adds more longevity to the shoe, which is really great to see from La Sportiva, showing them that they're really supporting resoling. And the other big change for the Katana lace is the heel. The heel has been totally restructured. It's the new Katana lace is more the new style of heel they've been going to with a lot of their shoes. I think one of the first shoes to kind of change how the heel for La Sportiva was the Solution Comps. I think the Solution Comps came out in 2021 or 2020, probably 2020, maybe 2019. Anyways, they were kind of the first climbing shoe to really redesign La Sportiva's heel. And it's really great, in their older style Katana, you can kind of see that the heel more had this kind of aggressive cup, and you had this rand right here, the slingshot rand that really pushes in. And I've had some times I've been climbing in these that I've had more pressure on the back of my heel, and it's just because of that more aggressive fit. Like, it does give you a pretty good fit in the heel, but sometimes it's a little bit too aggressive than what you need. Whereas the new heel for La Sportiva's shoes, you can kind of see it's more of like a overall just more laid back heel. It's not super aggressive. It's super easy to get on and super comfortable. But one of the big things that's kind of changed is the volume of the heel. So the older katanas have a slightly bigger heel than the new katanas, and I personally like that. My foot has generally like a smaller heel anyways. I love the Equilibriums because they're pretty small in the heel and they're kind of wider in the toe box. And seeing that how the katanas are kind of silhouetted of where they're kind of narrow in the heel and a little bit wider in the toe box, these work really great for me. So I'm a huge fan of their narrower heel. And I think it feels better overall. It feels a little bit more sensitive. Like, there's less structure in there, so you can kind of tell what's going on more with the heel. When I say like less structure, I mean like it's not as rigid. Like, La Sportiva's S heel within a couple of their climbing shoes, like the Otakis and the Squamas, like that is a really structured heel. And sometimes that's really great for like if you're heel hooking on micro edges, but a lot of times like I don't really need that. I just want to know if I am heel hooking what I'm heel hooking on. And I feel like the new katanas really give a great sensitivity in the heel. So that's been great. But yeah, those are really the only two things that were major updates for the shoe. Other than that, it stayed the same. It's the same last. I think it's the PD55 last. Put it at the bottom just in case if I'm wrong. But it's another classic last from La Sportiva. It's a great fitting last for me. I personally love it. But I've put a lot of time in the shoes, and I do really like how they climb. But the big difference here is that there are two pairs, and there's two different colors. Now, this is something that La Sportiva does, where they'll change the color for the men's and women's, and that's what we have here. So the previous version of the katanas, they were just the katanas. There was no men's and women's version, but with the newer version of the katanas, there is a men's and women's shoe. And they do offer some slightly different performance. For starters, the men's shoe is it's much more stiff. It's more of a platform shoe. I mean, you got a full length Vibram XS Edge rubber outsole. And so you'll get great like stiffness through here, stiffness within the toe box. It's just a very good and stiff shoe. Great for if you're on micro edges where you just need to support all your weight. Whereas the women's version has a little bit different of a design. You can kind of see right off the bat, it doesn't have a full-length outsole. And it has a different rubber compound, whereas this one uses Vibram XS Grip too. So it's stickier and it offers some benefit. I actually use the women's version for bouldering, just because, just the different rubber compound plus the more sensitivity. Because, with these, you can really bend them in half, whereas these, you can kind of see they have flexibility to them. So with that, you get a little bit slightly sensitive, you get a more sensitive fit to the women's version. But it's not, you don't lose everything there. Like, it's still decently stiff in the toe box, not as stiff as the men's version. But that's why I kind of got these for bouldering and maybe for some kind of harder sport climbing here and there. Just because I wanted a good shoe that was going to be supportive enough, but had flexibility when I needed it and sensitivity. And so far, I've been really liking the women's version for bouldering. I actually used the women's version indoor bouldering, and they work great. So I've been super happy with those and kind of the differences. And kind of with that being said, it's kind of cool to be able to have the same shoe fit like exactly the same. They're both a 41.5, but I've been able to use them for slightly different things. Like, I've been able to do some kind of longer climbs on these, a little bit more like going for like micro edges and all that. Whereas the flip side, I've been able to use these for more bouldering. And it's really nice to go through, flip to either pair and have them not fit differently. Like they're the same exact shoe, they just have some slightly different components to them. So that's been really nice to use, and for actually being out climbing, it's really great. And sometimes when I go to a place I haven't really climbed before, I'll just bring both shoes, and if I feel like one shoe is not doing so great on the route, I'll flip shoes, and sometimes I'll fix it. So yeah, it's really nice to have like the katanas in the men's and women's and have them offer slightly different things, but have them be like the ultimate quiver killer. Like you can do a lot of things in the katanas, and I think that's kind of the main, emphasis of the katanas. They're a shoe that can handle a lot, and that's definitely why I got them. So yeah, that's kind of the La Sportiva katanas, the newer updated ones. The older model, they're still a good model if you can find them. But the newer updates with them, the slight updates are definitely a little bit better than the older shoe. So I would still probably recommend the newer shoe over the older shoe, just because, yeah, they're just quality of life stuff. But yeah, so that kind of does it for the La Sportiva Katana laces. Kind of a review here. If you have any questions about the shoes, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. Luckily with these shoes, if you have any questions about them, I should hopefully be able to answer them because I've got a lot of time in them. So, I mean, obviously, the more time you got in the shoes, the more you can answer about the shoes. So, yeah. So, that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.